Hello everybody. If you didn't know, I game on a Linux machine, and I've run into many problems trying to optimize my computer for the best gaming experience. So I wanted to share with you the solution to some of these problems so that you don't have to do as much research yourself. Before we begin, I want to tell you guys that this is a Python script, so you have to have Python 3 installed on your system already, and once you have that installed, you do pip install pyautogui, and then once that's installed, you do pip install pynput, get it, like input, it detects the input from our keyboards and our mouse. So then you do that, and then you got these two installed, and then you're ready to begin. Here I have a script, macro.py. This is a Python script, and this allows you to set your own macros in Linux without even using a different macro software, which I haven't found one available for Linux yet. But I have found Python modules available, so I just coded my own Python script. Now let's take a look inside. And if you aren't familiar with what program I'm using Pycharm, and you can just get this by going into your package manager and typing Pycharm. And then you can get the community version, which is the free version, and it basically gives you this cool IDE for Python. If you don't care about using this, or maybe it's a bit overwhelming, you can always just pull up a text editor and just make a py file like this. And now it's a Python file, because on Linux it's as easy as that. Here we have my Python script. It may look like much, but it really isn't. Here we just have some stuff that I'm not really even completely sure what it does, but it basically just listens. It's just keyboard listener and mouse listener. So it just detects when we click a mouse button, move our mouse, when we press a key, release a key, etc. Right here, this is just us importing our modules, so nothing you need to really touch. Failsafe is something that I really recommend you keep on, and this means that when you are testing out your program, or even when you're using it, if you put your mouse like this in any of the corners of the screen, it will turn off. It will kill the program when you do that. I suggest you keep it on when testing, but maybe if you're going to be gaming and you might slam your pointer into the corner anyway, you might want to put this to false if you've already tested it. But for right now, I'm going to keep it to true because we are testing this. Now we have the mouse section. In this mouse section, we basically say what to do when you move, what to do when the mouse clicks, what to do with the mouse scrolls, and that's all. Then we have the keyboard section that says what to do when it's pressed, and what to do when it's on released. So right now, this is not really that much of a macro yet, since all of these are just set to print. Print mouse move to, was pressed, was released, scroll distance, and all this. They just print. So if we run this in terminal, let's see the output. And let me click always on top. If you didn't know you could do that, that's a really cool trick. And then let me just run the thing. When I move my mouse, it says it's moved. When I click on here and I can scroll, it says I scrolled. When I click on here, it says what button I'm using. Oops. And when I type, it says the buttons that I typed. So, let's see. Did I cover everything? Yeah, I got everything. Now we can kill the program by simply selecting our terminal window and then pressing Ctrl+C, which is how you can kill any Python script. Now let's start making your macro. So if you don't need to use the mouse in your macro, then you can just delete the whole mouse section right here. And you can also delete the mouse listener and each place it says mouse listener right here. Like that. This is just a keyboard macro now. But there's no point to do that because I want to use the mouse for my macro. So right here, if you're really not familiar with Python at all, imports just imports libraries, or I'm not sure if this is the right way to say it, but I sometimes call them modules. pyautogui is what we will be using to click mouse buttons and click keyboard buttons when we call functions. This is actually the same function as this pretty much, and it just only imports one specific part of the library, which will be the pynput.mouse listener. And we're importing as mouse listener and keyboard listener so we can keep them separate and they're not just both called listener, because that would be very confusing for both us and our program. Right here means we're defining a function. The reason that we're defining a function on move and never calling it is because right here we are actually saying call the function when we click a button. So basically, because we imported these, when we move our mouse, it is going to always call this function right here. So now we just need to say when this function is called, what do we want to do? And then we have a print value, which basically says put this into the terminal, and it's going to put mouse moved to, and then the x value and the y value, which are both in the function variables right here. Then right here we have the same thing, except we have x, y, button, and press. So every time we press a button, it's going to call on click, and it's going to give us an x value, a y value, a button, and a pressed. So then we can say print button was pressed, and then button was released. Every time you press a button, it runs this function, and every time you release a button, it also runs this function, which is kind of weird, but that's how it goes. So in order to differentiate when it's pressed and released, we detect if it really is pressed. So if pressed means if it pressed equals true. If it is pressed, then we know it's been pressed. But if the function is called again and it's not pressed, then we know it was released. Here is the same thing, except dx is the change in x, the distance that you've scrolled the x value, and dy is the distance that you've scrolled y. For my mouse, and I'm pretty sure most mouses and operating systems, then you'll probably only see a change in y, and probably only a 1 unless you've changed in your setting, -1 or +1. Here we have the keyboard section. This one's a lot simpler than this on click. We simply have on press and on release, and then we print key was pressed and key was released so that we can see the name of the key as well. So if you want to make a macro, a good way to start out is, first of all, if you're not going to be using move, you might want to just remove this move part, which is what I'm going to do because I'm not going to be using move for my function. And it just spams the terminal, and if there's no point in having it, I'm just going to delete it. Now, let me just click Ctrl+S to save, and let's run our function again. Now it's not so annoying when I move my mouse. I can still scroll, and it still says that I'm scrolling down. Now, let me put this always on top and click off, just so that it doesn't type in terminal. So the button that I want to use for my macro is my front mouse button right here. And what I want to do is when I hold it, I want it to be able to look behind me in Minecraft. So let me click it so I can see what button it thinks it is. Now it says it is button.button9. So now we can stop the program, go here, and we can say if button equals button.button9, I think it was. Let me just try that again. Yep. Okay. If the button equals button.button9, and I'm not completely sure if this is a string or not, but let's guess it is a string. So now let's see if we can say like print hi. Let's see if that works. Oops. Okay, that does not work. So maybe it isn't a string. So I'm just going to delete these quotation marks, save it, which is Ctrl+S, and button is not defined. Great. Okay, so what we did wrong is that we have to specify it's from the mouse library. there we go. Now it should be defined and it should work. So let me just save it again and try one more time. Okay, we got another error. Sorry about that. We had to import mouse and keyboard. I thought that would import with listener, but I guess not. So we had to just import from pynput mouse keyboard really quick. You guys won't have to do this because it'll be in the script that you have. So don't worry about it. Then if we test this, it says hi. Perfect. Now, I don't want it to say hi when I click it though. I want to do something else. And I want to do something different when I press it and when I release it. So I'm going to put this inside this if statement. I can put this inside by hitting tab. And put these back inside these ones here. Oops. Oops. Okay, there we go. So now it looks like this. So instead of printing it, I want it so that if it is pressed, then I want it to hit F1 and then F5 twice so that it looks behind me in Minecraft. So this is where our pyautogui comes into play. So right here, I have up a bunch of pyautogui functions. We can click, we can choose where to click, we can move our mouse, but this is relative position, so distance x, change in x, and change in y. Move to, which is absolute positions. Type out some text with a set interval between each character. So if I choose 0.1, that'll type this one, then wait 1/10 of a second, then type the other one. So in total, it'll probably take around a second, but if you want to type super fast, you can make it like that. Because words per minute are calculated by taking the amount of characters you type in a minute and then dividing by 5, then that means that this will be 12 words per minute, and this will be 120. And that means that this will be 1,200 words per minute. So yeah, that's pretty fast. I'll just keep it at this, because no point having it faster. This one simply presses a button, which is actually what I want, but wait! This one can press multiple buttons, so I think I'll get this one instead. This one is a hotkey, so it'll press the first key, then it'll press the second key, and it'll release going the opposite order. So you can basically say Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, whatever you want to do, Ctrl+Z, you can do Ctrl+Shift+B, whatever that does, you know. pyautogui pause. So this has to do with the failsafe. So between each function, it pauses this amount of time, so 0.1 second, which gives you time to slam your cursor into the corner. So right now it's auto set to 0.1 since we didn't define it. But if you're going to have failsafe off and you know that your Python script already worked, you might want to maybe put this down one more if it's really time sensitive, which I might end up doing for mine. Maybe not that low, but maybe something like 0.03, just because one tick in game is 0.05 seconds. So I want mine to get done close to only one tick in game. Here you can do right click, middle click, double click, or triple click, and you can choose the absolute X and Y value to click at. Then we have scroll. And all of these are pretty much out of the original documentation, which you can find at this website, which will also be in the link below. And there's even some more functions if you want to check them out there. But for right now, I'm just going to be using this one. So let's go over here. And I want that to say when it is pressed. I want to click F1, F5, and F5. And I will just remove this. Oops, accidentally deleted a quotation mark there. At this point, you may be wondering, what do you put in here for your button? Like, how do you know F5 is actually going to click the F5 key, and how do you know it's not a capital F? Well, this this library is pretty self-explanatory, and that's one of the reasons I like it. So if you want to click delete or F5 or escape, you pretty much just type exactly what you see on your keyboard, except no caps. So with that being said, F1, F5, and F5 will probably get the job done just how I want it to. And I'm pretty sure that the pause will only be a delay between each function, and since I am calling it all in one function like this, instead of just doing pyautogui press F1 and then do another one with F5, instead of doing that, since I am doing this one, it'll probably get it done instantaneously within like 1/100th of a second. So if you're going to click multiple keys under the same if statement, I suggest you use this function. And then, if it is released, I want it to put me back into the normal person view and make my hotbar appear. I also use this for looking at the audience, and I had a Python script that gave me this macro, but it wasn't the best. So really quickly, if you don't want to have an mouse button macro, and maybe you want to have a keyboard macro, which I bet a lot of you guys do, then instead of saying if the button equals and then blah 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 button, you can say if the key equals and then the key will probably be more self-explanatory, so maybe F1, you know? Then you can say if the key equals, and if you want to figure out what the key is, just leave in that last command there, right here, so it'll tell you which key was pressed when you're running the command. And then right here, you can just, whatever it says in terminal when it prints it, you can just change it so it's that if key equals whatever it was, then do this, you know? Just wanted to put that out there because I know most of you are probably going to be using keyboard macros instead of mouse macros like I was doing in this example. If you want to see an example with a keyboard macro or any other ways that I've configured my Linux machine to game, then let me know and I'll make a video. Now that I've done this, let's test it out to see if it works. So Ctrl+S to save, and let's pull up this terminal and see if it works. Now you can see it looks like it does work. This is a little confusing right here because I clicked it twice. So let me just clear the terminal and run it again and click it once. Now it says F1 key was pressed, F1 key was released, and then that is F1, that is F5. That's just what the output looks like in terminal. Then it says F5 was pressed, F5 was released, F5 was pressed, F5 was released. Then F1 was pressed, F1 was released, F5 was pressed, F5 was released. Now, let's try this out in-game to see how cool it works. Okay, Minecraft is up. I played 1.17.1, and let's join Hypixel. Okay, here we are in Hypixel. Let me full screen my GUI. So, now that we're here, let's launch up our Python script. Oh, that's wrong. Uh-oh. It's not working so well. I think it is too fast for Minecraft to handle. That's too bad. Okay, well, let's touch up our Python script really quick. Yeah, I'm still using the bad skin. So, it looks like it's going too fast for Minecraft to handle, so let's fix that. Although I would like it to be hyperspeed, sadly, Minecraft just can't handle that, so it's time to do what I was not wanting to do, and just put down this function. So, here we go. Okay. if I just go back here, it's a little slow. It's a little slow, but it works, and Minecraft can handle faster. Or at least instantly, which was what we were trying. Let's try setting the delay down. It's okay to have failsafe to false if you're just going to be doing keyboard stuff, because I don't see the point if it's not moving your mouse. You can easily go over to terminal and exit out if it's not controlling your mouse. But if you are going to be doing stuff with your mouse, you should keep failsafe on. Now that we know our Python script works, let's change the delay setting. So let's go right here and change the pyautogui and let's make it 0.03. Now, let's save and run it in there again. Yeah, that's like instantaneous. I can't really tell it being choppy anymore because it's 3 times faster. And that's all I really need, being a human and all. But if you're doing something that's more sensitive or needs more speed, you might want to set that lower, but 0.3 works fine for me. And I'm going to start using this script instead of my old one. Okay, now, let me cover a few more things that you might be wondering before I leave. If you want to run it not in a terminal, here's what you do. You just create another file and maybe name it macro run, and then you're going to open in your text editor and you're going to simply put down the file directory. You're going to do Python 3 file directory. In fact, you can just do a squiggly line right here if you're typing it out. If you didn't know, you can just click this and click Ctrl+C to copy the file directory here. Then, once you have that, you can just save it, and then you can do properties, permissions, wrong one. You can do properties, permissions, allow executing file as program, and you can just double click it and you can click run. And now it should be running in the background. Oops, for some reason it wasn't working. Oh, it says the name onPress is not defined. Okay, so I'm just deleting everything that I don't need. And now I have to delete the keyboard listener. And I have to delete the on scroll here because it is now not defined. Now just Ctrl+S that. And now you can run it in the background. Boom! And it's running in the background. No terminal needed. So if you didn't catch that, all I did was I got the script, and it had to be a working script, just by the way. And then I just got a new file, and I made it say Python 3, the same command that I ran in the terminal. Then I did properties, permissions, allow executing file as program, and then I just click run, and then it runs it as it would in the terminal, except not in the terminal, so you don't have to see that terminal taking up space on your desktop. So that's what we did. Now, you may have done this, and now you're thinking, how do you stop it or close the terminal if there is no terminal? Well, here's how. You go into your terminal, and then if you go right here, right, you go into your terminal, and these commands will be in the description. You just do this command. Oops, I mistyped it in there. You have to do grep Python, sorry. This will allow you to see all of the Python scripts currently running. This will be in the description. And then you do kill PID. So PID is this thing you have right here. So then you're going to just kill the PID. So I want to kill this macro py1, and the PID is 83 0, so I can also just click copy and then do kill paste, so I don't have to type the whole thing out. And now, if I go in game, the macro's off. So that is, wait, I need to look at you guys just a second. So that, wait. So that is how you do it, guys. That is how you make a macro in Linux. If you're having trouble with your Python script, just make sure you have no typos, because this Python script works perfectly for me. And that's how you do a macro in Linux. I hope you enjoyed, and that's it for today, and I'll see you in the next Minecraft video. Bye!